if you go to other places on the planet, if you go to Europe, if you go to Africa, if you go to Japan or China, right? The cultures are very different, aren't they? The language is different, people look different, right? The way people behave is different. It's all different, right? But awareness is exactly the same. So a Japanese teacher, a Chinese teacher, an Italian teacher, a European teacher, a German teacher, an English teacher, an American teacher are saying the exact same teaching. Because this, as far as this is concerned, as far as awareness is concerned, the truth is the same everywhere, right? And the way the truth works is the same everywhere. If you wake up in Europe, you're just as awake as somebody that woke up here. And the experience you're having is exactly the same experience as anybody on the planet and anybody in history that ever woke up. Right? Why? Because there's just one truth, and it's non-dual. It's non-dual. Which means that, and this is one of the things about these teachings that make them a little bit difficult, because you have to talk about these things on different levels. You know what I mean? It's like you have to talk about these things on the level of personality, otherwise nobody will understand what the hell you're saying, right? But that's all lies, and that's all conceptual information to try and help you understand what's beyond what you can understand. And the truth is beyond what you can understand. But the good news is you don't have to understand it, because you are it. You're being it at all times. And when you're able to start to experience the reality of the awareness that is the truth of what you are, your life becomes what you just said. An exciting, interesting adventure that's never the same. It's always changing, it's challenging, right? It's surprising, isn't it? Sure. Yeah. This is what Helen Keller said. She said, life is either an exciting adventure or nothing. What's the nothing she's pointing to? Nothing is that you're living in a story in your head and you're not experiencing life. That's the nothing. The adventure is when you're here for life. You're here for life. But you're not here trying to control it. You're not here trying to make it go a certain way. No. You're here to appreciate the blessing and the value and the excitement and the adventure of this experience of being alive. You're not trying to survive. See? You see, that's the orientation that human beings have because of the identification with the physical body. You know, once you're born, right, and you come into the world and you come into the already existing culture and the already existing teaching and all, you know, all of that stuff, right? You're coming into a world of a body of awarenesses that are completely identified with the physical body, right? And so what's the most important thing? If you're a physical body, what's the most important thing? Exactly, to survive, right? Yeah, so that becomes what you're interested in. You're interested in protecting yourself, which means protecting your body, right? Protecting what you own, because your identity, one of the ways your identity glorifies itself and empowers itself is by relating itself to material wealth, isn't it? Yeah. So you identify with what you have. You identify with the personality, and then you identify with what you have, right? And guess what? The more you have, the bigger, better, stronger person you are. That's why you hear some of the dumbest people on the planet say, oh, I'm worth $8 billion. Did you hear that? I am worth $8 billion, not I have $8 billion. I am worth $8 billion. And so the game that's being played by the personality, if you look around, everybody's trying to make a good show, aren't they? Yeah, by their clothes, by their cars, by their money, by their face, right? That's the game of life that everybody's playing. Because as far as they're concerned, that's the only game in town. And if you win that game, that's a life well lived. If you win that game, that's a life well lived. Even though during the entire time, not for a moment of that time were you awake and experiencing the truth. So, but you see, within this culture of humanity, within the culture of personalities, right? That's fine. That's sufficient. You know, you're a success. Don't worry about it. You're a success. Don't worry about it. Maybe we'll cure cancer, you know, before your body dies. Don't worry about it. Probably not.
During my meditation, I noticed that I couldn't bring myself to focus. I was in my personality the whole time. So my question is, because I'm at the beginner's level, um, does it take? Is I can't.
See, after I had answered the question the first time, now he's confused. Who am I really?
I guess I guess what level of what how long will it take to be committed to this practice in order to be able to keep my focus at a center and be able to block out the distractions and be able to reach a point where I'm focused and I'm already benefiting from it because it's a practice, but when will my practice of meditation heighten?
Heighten,
Or or I guess
grow,
grow.
expand,
Yes.
turn blue, wake up.
I think it's important to know that we're all there. Yeah.
The what?
We're all there. We're all experiencing that. Yes. On different levels.
And on different days.
Yeah.
Day to day is different for me at least.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that that experience that you're all experiencing is an opportunity to practice or not. If you don't practice, if you don't practice, it keeps verifying and validating the lie. If you don't practice, you're being what is not real. That's the difference. Yeah, so ultimately, not only formally but informally, right? If you get the truth, if you see this as real and true, right? Your goal should be to have your life be a practice. Life is a practice because your life as it was lived before this truth became part of it, right? Was constantly operating from an unreal place. Constantly identifying with something that's not real. Constantly believing in a voice in your head that wasn't you. So you're going to have to come out of that hypnosis. You're going to have to come out of that hypnosis. And when you come out of that hypnosis, you'll start hearing the personality using your mouth and your body to live its life. You'll start seeing the personality using your mouth and your body to live its life, right? And it doesn't care whether you're happy. All it cares about is whether it's in control and it's surviving and it's keeping life at bay and keeping everybody else off. That's all it cares about. You can be miserable, and as long as that's going on, the personality is doing fine. It doesn't care about the quality of your life. And when I say it doesn't care about the quality of life, I'm not talking about the personality like it's real. I'm saying there's a program there, right? And it's almost like artificial intelligence, right? It's a program that's complicated enough that can keep interacting with things in a way to maintain its existence, maintain its position, maintains what is most important to it, which is survival, okay? If you wake up to the truth and you start not only seeing that the awareness is real, but being what you're seeing, right? If you get to a point in the practice where you start experiencing that you are that, when you're not involved in a thought process, even though those are small gaps between thoughts, right? They are still gaps. And they can be opened up. They can be expanded by practicing when your attention is involved in the thought process. Bring it over here. Make sure that the thinking isn't there. And just experience the silent, still awareness in which the body is breathing. That's the practice. Now, if you just keep doing that, right, eventually the contact you're making with reality here, right, will start to become substantial because it's real. And it will be in relationship to what's over here, which is insubstantial, has no substance because it's not real. This awareness is real, it's substantial. It is the reality of you. And when you have experiences of it, and there are people in this room right now that have had these experiences, maybe more of you than I've heard of, right? And what I mean by that is when you've had the experience of the truth of yourself, it's like something shifted. You didn't know what it was, but whatever it was, all of a sudden now you feel happiness and everything is okay There's nothing wrong. There's no problem. I don't understand it. I don't understand how this could be, but it's real, and it feels like space, and it feels like a great relief, and it feels like something that is so fulfilling that if there's a way to get this back, I want it. That's the personality's version of having a break in the process of using thinking to exist. So there are gaps like that. In a lot of spiritual teachings, they say that this is a foretaste or a glimpse, right? So you're given the opportunity to see what it would be like to be you, just for a brief period of time. But that's all it takes. Anybody that's had that experience will immediately agree to the fact that that was the most fulfilling experience they've had in their life. So that's what's possible, that's what's available, but it's not going to happen by itself. You're going, as a person, you're going, as a person, you're going to have to commit yourself, right, to not being a person.
Yeah.
Tricky, right? As a person, you're going to have to commit yourself to not being a person because you never were. And until you can experience not being a person, you'll be stuck being a person, which you aren't, right? So, you know, if you're a person practicing not being a person, right, the only way you could be doing that is if in the very beginning you were never a person. That's how you could practice not being a person. The idea of being a person is something that shows up in thinking, right? It shows up in your behavior because you act as if you are a person. It's a pretense. Everybody's pretending to be something. That's why it doesn't feel good. That's why it feels empty. If you're going to be honest with yourself, right, and you look at your life, I promise you, if you're going to be honest with yourself and you look at your life, one of the things that's true is there's always been this concern and this interest in somehow getting something to happen. You don't even know what it is. But there's something missing. There's something lacking, right? There's something lacking. There's this sense of, there's kind of an empty feeling about my life. There's an empty feeling about this character I'm playing in this drama that I'm living. There's an empty feeling. It doesn't feel real. I don't feel real. I want to feel real. This is why people do bungee jumping. Yeah, because the realest they can ever feel is to be terrified, and the energy of that fear is so electric that okay, now I feel real, but now I have to bungee jump a lot. It's not true. You can experience the same excitement of bungee jumping by just being present to life as it's being lived. As I said before, Helen Keller, before she got language, she was literally living the life of an animal. Go watch the movie, The Miracle Worker. She was living the life of an animal. Her family didn't know what to do with her. She ate like an animal. She had no understanding or comprehension of what was going on. They didn't know what to do with her. And finally, they found this woman to work with her who figured out a way to start making the shape of letters in Helen's hand, right? And she kept making letters and then putting them together and then pointing to things and saying, that's this, you know, using language. As soon as Helen Keller got what language was, the lights went on. Now she was in the world. But she was in the world with a kind of a fresh sense of her experience of her true nature, so that she never got totally indoctrinated or sucked into the educational condition process. So she was fortunate that she started out with a lot of freedom, right? She ended up being an author, a famous person, and one of her most famous statements was, life is either an exciting adventure or nothing. She would know, because before she woke up, before she had an ability to be in the world, she was nothing. There was nothing. She was like my dog, you know? And we could envy animals like our dogs, right? Because they don't have the capacity to worry. You know what I mean? They don't look in the mirror to see if they're okay, right? They don't care about what other people think of them or what other dogs think of them. So we might envy them because of that, but they also don't have the benefit of experiencing their God nature. We do. You have the benefit of experiencing your God nature. Your God nature is this conscious awareness, right, that's different from the dog because it can know itself. It can be aware of itself. It can know what it is. It can understand the situation that it's in and know what it is. That's godlike. That's godness. And the dog doesn't have that. We have that, right? But most of us are pissing it away. Really. Most of us are pissing it away. And we're not doing it on purpose. We don't know any better. It's why we don't know it. It's just like Jesus Christ said about the soldiers that were putting spears in him on the cross. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. That's true about most of humanity today. Most of humanity doesn't know what it's doing. The evidence is obvious. I mean, all you got to look is look at the news. If people knew what they were doing, they'd stop all this bullshit immediately. They'd stop war. They'd stop destroying the planet. They'd stop hatred. They'd stop fighting with one another. They would realize there's no point in conflict. There's no point in conflict. Nobody wins conflict. So, I don't know. Maybe this is the final exam for humanity, right? Because we have the ability by pushing a button to end the whole show. Maybe it's the final exam for humanity, right? But if you wake up and you see things as they are, that's not even that's not a threat. Even zombie apocalypse is not a threat. Because if this all ends, right, and you understand the truth, right, there's no such thing as this all ends, If you understand the truth, the scientists, right, they have to figure everything out, what's going on here, right, so we can understand and try and control it all, right? And they all agreed, there was this big bang, right? But how about before the Big Bang? Didn't there have to be something that exploded before the Big Bang, right? Yeah. So I'm convinced, and I think anybody that's awake is convinced, if this whole thing ended, there'd be a new universe pop right up. Because for God, this is nothing. This is a small trick for God, right? This whole thing could end and God could just go, put another universe. So don't be sucked in by all that nonsense, right? Understand that even though we say that that duality is not the truth, meaning that you are not separate from reality, that you're not separate from the rest of humanity, right? And we say that the personality is not real and not who you are. That's beginner material. If you stay in this long enough and you practice consistently, right? Eventually you'll be sophisticated enough, you'll be able to hear the teaching enough for you to hear that even the personality is who you are. Right? Even the personality, because that's all there is. Consciousness is all there is. Even the personality is who you are. But as Ramesh Balsekar said, God created an ego, and the ego is a mechanism, right, that blocks you from knowing the truth, that blocks you from knowing that you are an expression of God, that blocks you in such a way where you think you are separate, you are this body, you are an individual person, right? And look at what happens. Look at what happens. That throws you into a horrible situation, doesn't it? Because if that's true, you're going to die. If that's true, this is a very temporary, short-lived situation in which you will imagine you have control and you have no control whatsoever. And even though it's a short-term, temporary situation, it's a wonderful blessing and an opportunity to experience an exciting, interesting, adventurous thing called life that most people don't even show up for. Most people are just having a bad dream. Having a bad dream. Life sucks and then you die, right? And most people's lives are lives that they're tolerating, coping with, struggling with, trying to change, trying to get it over with, trying to get through. That's pretty sick, isn't it? I mean, the most exciting possibility you can imagine is presented before you every day, right? And you're hurrying up to get through it, trying to get through it unscathed and untouched and unaffected by the whole thing. So this opportunity is really, for you to hear this teaching is in and of itself a blessing. Because the majority of humanity that is on this planet will not hear this teaching. They'll live and die like my dog. I mean, that sounds like a rough thing to say, but sometimes the truth is a rough thing to say, but it's true. They'll live and die like a dog. You, on the other hand, have been presented with what Paul Hederman calls a subpoena. You know, you've been presented with a subpoena to wake up. You've been presented with a subpoena to come out of the lie and take advantage of the opportunity that your life is. Now, whether you do that or not will depend on, you know, whether the personality continues to dominate and run the show, or whether you do look, and when you look, you make contact with a reality that is always available to you. And if you begin the process of disidentifying yourself from that which is an illusion, because I don't care how long you think the mirage is water, you're never going to get a drink. I don't care how long you think the illusion is real, it's going to continue to be an illusion. It's not going to stop being an illusion. If you want to drink water, you have to be awake and be able to see real water. If you want to experience a life that is exciting and adventurous, you have to be awake and be available to that life. You can't be living your life in your head. You can't be living your life as an interpretation. You have to live your life as a real, exciting, energetic reality that's vibrant, that's happening all the time, right? And if you could disidentify with being a character in a drama that's going nowhere and just show up for this exciting, unpredictable reality that we're all in, that would be thrilling. Don't you think? That'd be pretty thrilling, right? But again, it's not free lunch, so you have to do what it takes to gradually come out of this hypnotism that you're in. And you know, one of the things that God threw in, right, is that if you play this game of waking up, right, and you do it correctly and you meditate consistently, I'll throw some bonuses out. I'll have certain people wake up all of a sudden. You won't have to do it the long way, like Eckhart Tolle, right? Like there are a lot of people out there that their story of waking up is they weren't trying. They weren't even trying. But they had come in touch with the practices, or they had heard about the teachings, right? And the right combination came into play where the bubble popped for them and they were awake. So one of the good things about this practice is that if you really are sincere and you really commit yourself and you practice meditation every day and you practice deepening your understanding of these teachings every day, your bubble could pop at any time. And even if it doesn't pop right away all of a sudden, and it pops gradually, you get to have the benefit of being awake as it appears. You'll be less troubled. You'll be less upset. You'll be less in conflict with life. You'll be happier. You'll be peaceful. You'll be healthier. Your body will start to come in line with the truth that you are. And you'll naturally be interested in what works. Naturally be interested in what works, which means you'll keep your mouth shut a lot. Yeah, people who are awake don't say much because most of what people talk about is a waste of energy, right? If you couldn't complain, right? If you couldn't complain, look at all the energy you would save if you didn't complain, right? If you just started to be humble, right? If you just started to be humble, if you give up being self-righteous, what do I mean by that? Here's one of the ways that the misidentification with the personality is at its worst, okay? That voice in your head that's talking all the time, right? That's probably talking about me right now. That voice in your head that's talking all the time, questioning things, evaluating everything, right? In your default state, which means when you're not awake or you're not even partially awake, in your default state, in other words, in your ordinary way that you are when you're going through your life, you believe everything it says. Without question. You think it's a report, you think it's information that's reporting what's happening. When in fact, it's not information that's reporting what's happening, it's reporting an interpretation of what's happening that has you always be right. You ever notice that? You don't, you know, your thoughts are truth, not thoughts. They're not interpretations, they're the truth. You relate to them immediately like they're true. Immediately like they're true. That's the addiction. That's the hypnosis, right? You're not going to break out of that hypnosis by having a moment of clarity. You're not going to break out of that hypnosis by having even understanding conceptually what I'm talking about here. That's not going to get you out of it. It may seem appealing to the personality. Oh, wow, yeah, it sounds good. I want that, right? But then when you go to practice meditation as the personality, you screw it all up. You screw it up because then you say things like beginners always say, right? Oh, I tried, I was trying to meditate, but the distractions that were going on in my head were too much. I couldn't deal with it. There was distractions. There was noise in the room. I had to pee. And my body was restless. This is probably not for me. That's the personality trying to meditate, right? If you practice meditation the way it was designed to practice, you just sit there and be silent, right? And pay attention in such a way where you can have some moments of freedom from that constant narrative that's playing. And start to learn and understand that even though you were the one who thought you knew things you thought you knew, right? Even though you thought you were the one that you thought knew things you thought you knew, that was never true. You can't know anything because the you think you are doesn't exist. All along, the awareness that is the truth of you is the knower of everything. That's always been what knows everything, not the personality. It's the awareness. The awareness knows everything. The awareness, as you look around this room, you don't have to say, oh, okay, what did I learn? Oh, that's a wall, this is a chair. You don't have to relearn everything every time you open your eyes. The awareness immediately knows what's going on. Immediately. Even somebody that has had amnesia. This is in the literature. People who have had head injuries and had total amnesia. They didn't know their name. They didn't know their personality. They couldn't recognize their family. They had no personal history, right? But the awareness still knew what was going on around them. That's an interesting thing. Only the personality disappeared, but the awareness was still there and it knew what it was looking at. Very interesting. Maybe you'd be better off being that awareness, knowing what it's looking at, than the personality that's totally neurotic.